All right, it's week 3. This week we are covering IT infrastructure. We're going to cover various technology platforms and what you might consider when you're looking at those to implement in your business. We're going to talk about your setup and your organization of your IT systems and really how you should operate in a digital and paperless world. And then we're going to talk about the ever important topic of security, which is becoming more and more scrutinized and more important as the business world becomes more digital. We're going to cover various technology platforms that you're going to want to consider for your business. Every business is different. You sell different products, you have different service lines, different sizes. Businesses are different and are going to have different needs based on their business and their operations. One thing that is consistent, though, is that those needs are going to be ever changing. So you need to know that as you are implementing technology in your business, you want to implement as much as you can technology that's going to be flexible with you as you grow, but then also just understand that you are going to have to make changes as your business evolves. There's new technology being implemented and developed every single day. So to think that you're going to implement technology today that's going to last through the full tenure of your business for however long you operate, it's just unrealistic to think that's going to be the case. So look for technologies that are going to work for a long time and set them up so that you can be flexible and you can adjust as you grow, but just understand that you may have to make changes to your choices down the road. We're going to talk about your workspace, what you set up for your work environment and how you're going to operate and keep all of your files and your documents, and just basically how do you operate in a digital world. We're going to talk about CRM, customer relationship management tools. Your website is an important tool from not only a marketing perspective, but also operationally for running your business. Point of sale systems, if you are in a retail type environment, online sales, retail, restaurant, really any type of point of sale where you are selling to your customer at the time of providing the product or the service. Project task management systems. So if you are in a business where you have to manage a project and the status of the project and the resources on the project, or you have recurring tasks that you need to complete for your customers or your clients, this is going to be a tool that you're going to want to consider. And then documentation storage. Where are you going to keep your documents? How are you going to file your documents? Everything is or should be on its way going to a paperless environment. So how are you going to keep track of your storage and be able to find things when you need them? All right, let's talk about your workspace. And when I talk about your workspace, I'm talking about essentially the platform where you're going to be getting business done. Where are you going to be collaborating with your team? How are you going to be communicating with your team and your customers? Where are you saving your files and your documentation? Most teams today are collaborating and working together on shared files, and you need to decide as a business how you're going to structure that environment and that workspace for your team, and where you're going to be establishing that so that you have the most efficient and streamlined operations working together as a team. Some of the examples and the choices that people may choose to make are Microsoft Teams. So Microsoft Teams has the option for shared files, be it SharePoint or OneDrive, and then you've got your communication and your chat through the Teams channels. You then have your Outlook where you can do your email and your productivity there. So Teams is Microsoft Teams or Office 365, Microsoft 365. They keep changing the name of that, but that is one of the environments or platforms that you might decide to establish for your business. Other companies are Google Shops. They say, no, we don't like Microsoft. We want to do everything on Google. So they use Google Sheets, Google Drive. They set everything up so that their shared environment is through Google. So that's another option that you might want to do. Dropbox is used quite extensively, though it's not as efficient of a tool for that. It's not as all encompassing as Teams or Google would be. So Dropbox is more of a file sharing option. But you're still going to have kind of your own, software that's going to be on each individual computer. You're going to have to decide if you're using Zoom or Google Meet or Teams when you're, to communicate with your team internally. What Office suite are you going to use? For your email, are you using Google email or are you using Office, Outlook? So Dropbox is an option and it is extensively used, but it isn't necessarily an all-encompassing system like Microsoft or Google might be for you. All right, so your CRM is your customer relationship management tool. So this is where you're going to house all customer or client information, names, contact information, email addresses, any communication that you've had with customers. So every encounter that you've had with your customer will be documented in here. You can track leads and opportunities. So your sales team can track prospects in here that maybe you haven't ever sold to, or for current customers, opportunities for new business that you can sell with them. If they've got new projects coming up, or that they've got another department that could come on board with your services, you can track those opportunities in your CRM. Most CRMs can also do email marketing for you. So you can set up your CRM to send out regular communication to current customers, or to send drip campaigns to prospects or potential customers that you're working with. It can also streamline your sales pipeline. So you can use your CRM to automate some of your sales processes. Someone can go to your website, and if they want to place an order, they can place an order on your website. It ties into your CRM. It processes that order, and it ships over that information to the accounting system to get the invoicing out to the customer as well. So there's a lot of work that your CRM can do for you. There's a lot that you can set up within your CRM to automate processes, and to help your business operate. Just even from, it used to be that a CRM was very much used on the sales side, and that's about where it stopped. Now it's become a tool that is used for marketing, sales, and then even into your operational procedures and order fulfillment, delivering to customers, and getting it even over into the accounting side. So CRM is a very important tool, and just about every business will need some sort of CRM that they will implement within their business. Some examples that we have: HubSpot is a CRM that has the marketing function built into that. You have Zoho CRM. Salesforce is a common one that you will hear. Salesforce, really all of these systems can be very customized, but you'll find that there's a lot of companies using CRMs built on Salesforce, and they've customized it to work with their business. Keep is one that is out there that is a CRM. Monday, Pipedrive. There's a plethora of CRMs out there. So as you are considering the CRM that works best for you, think about your business operations, think about your cost and what makes the most sense for your business. What you can handle, how many users are you going to need in your CRM, and what's that going to cost you, and try them out before you land on one CRM. Try to get free trials of each of them, which I think almost all of these would do. Try a free trial, and really make sure when you set up that free trial you have time to spend on it, and that you set it up the way you want to use it, and just see what you like. Some are easier to use than others. You might find one easier to use that someone else finds difficult, and they may think the one you feel is easy is difficult. So just determine what you are wanting to get out of your CRM, and then use that to help you make the decision. The biggest problem we see with CRMs in business is that people don't use them. So you implement the CRM, you've got great intentions behind it, but if it's too hard to use, no one's going to put their information in there, and then it's not going to be helpful. It's not going to be a tool that you're going to actually get benefit from. So make sure that you are spending time up front to determine which the best system is for you based on what you need, and then make sure you are setting it up correctly from the beginning so that you know how to use it, and then make sure that your team is using it, because you'll only get benefit out of your CRM if you're actually using it and if everyone is using it. So why do you need a CRM? I mentioned that just about every business, no matter how big you are, no matter what you're selling, who you're selling to, really just about every business needs a CRM. And I want to cover why it's important. The first thing is that a CRM is going to help you increase sales. If you've got a CRM in place and you've got a way to track those tasks that you are going to complete through your sales process, you've got a way to look back at communication that you've had with a former prospect. You've got reminders set up for following up. You've got a schedule in place that says, hey, once, if we haven't heard back from someone, if someone reaches out and they want to purchase our product or they're interested in our product, and we have an initial conversation with them, but then they don't follow up with us, then we've got a reminder to follow up in 2 weeks. And then if we still don't hear back from them, then we've got one to follow up in 2 more weeks. And then if we still don't hear back, then we're going to follow up in a month. And then, you've got a process in place. The CRM builds out automated systems and reminders to help you have a sales process, which is going to help you increase sales. That way people think that you remember them. They appreciate you reaching back out to them. Often, so many times, people have that first encounter with a potential prospect says no, or the prospect just never gets back to them, and then they just write them off. They just fall off of their list. But if they would just go back and follow up 6 months later, it might be the right time. If they would have a systematic process in place for following up, then they might get the person at the right time when it makes sense for them. So a CRM is really important to help you increase sales. It can also help improve customer relations. So with your CRM, you can keep track of key information about each of your customers. You can keep track of someone's favorite things. You can keep track of husbands' names, kids' names, dogs' names. You can keep track of customer information that helps you when you are having a conversation with them again. It helps to trigger your memory of past conversations that you've had. You're also keeping track of those conversations that you've had. So when a client reaches back out and they have a question for you, you can go back and reference that information. You can keep notes and logs of how you've talked about things. That way you don't have to remember everything in your head. You've got something to look back to and you can keep track of that. It streamlines the sales process. So, I mentioned it increases sales, but it does that by streamlining your sales process. It's going to make your sales process quicker. If you can set up your CRM so that when someone pushes the button to buy, that it takes them through steps 2, 3, and 4 of the purchasing process automatically versus you having to initiate that, it's going to help streamline your sales process. It can also tie directly from making the sale into your accounting system, which is going to get you revenue in the door faster. So streamlining processes is really an important piece of a CRM and a benefit that it provides. And then it houses key customer data. So when you are trying to pull customer information, you're trying to do a massive communication to customers, you are trying to update your customer list, trying to keep track of things, your CRM is going to have all of that information for you. So you've got a one-stop place that you can go to find all important customer information. All right, so let's talk about what you should look for as you're considering your CRM. First, consider implementation. What's the time that it's going to take to implement something? What's the cost? Some systems that you will consider, they aren't necessarily out-of-the-box systems. So while you can purchase them and you can, a lot of these systems are subscription-based at this point, you can purchase and you can have an account tomorrow. You can have an account in 5 minutes if you just get it set up. There's often more implementation that you're going to need in order to actually get it operational for you. So think about what you need out of the system, and if you're going to need to hire additional help or hire an implementation team. A lot of these systems will have an implementation team that they can provide to you for an additional cost that will help you get it set up. But think about what it's going to take for the different systems to get them implemented in your business. Some are more customizable than others, which is beneficial, but also takes more time. So just think about what your business needs and what that implementation is going to look like. Ease of use. As I mentioned before, the not using the CRM is the biggest issue with the CRM. So if you are going to implement one and it's not going to be easy to use, if it doesn't have a great mobile application, but your team is all sitting out in the field, if it is clunky to get around when you log in, if it's not visually appealing, even. I mean, anything that is going to deter people from using it is going to be a problem. So make sure that you implement one that is going to be easy to use and that is easy to use for your business, your team, and what you are using it for. Consider the price. Obviously, there is a wide range of prices for CRMs. Some CRMs start off with free versions, and then as you add features, you add costs to there. Some are very expensive even just to get started. So you want to make sure that you're considering what you're using it for, the value you're going to get out of it, and then what makes sense from a cost perspective. Now, integrations. This is really important to think about too. Think about your accounting system that you use, and does the CRM that you're considering integrate with the accounting system? Does it integrate with other systems that you might use? So do you have a point of sale system that you're using? Can it talk to your website shopping cart and how that works? Make sure that you are understanding how your CRM works and what other systems it integrates with that you are using and that you're going to need for it to work the best for your business. And then customer service. This is really important. Do they have customer service that's going to be available to you? Can you call if you have issues? Do you have a way to contact a support person that's going to help you troubleshoot how to make it work? Do you have a direct contact that will help you develop out your CRM? And if so, how long does that last and what does that look like from a service standpoint? So make sure that you're considering all these factors as you look at CRMs, because you don't just want to choose the one that everyone else uses just because everyone else uses it. You want to make sure it's going to work best for you and that you're going to use it. All right, websites. Historically, your website has been your marketing platform. It is the platform that you use to tell people about your services or your products. And it still largely is that for most companies. It's a marketing platform, it's a marketing tool, it's how you are getting information out about your services or your products. It's an online storefront. So regardless of whether or not you actually sell your product online, it is where people can come to buy from you. It may mean that they are contacting you through the website and then they go through a sales process with your team, but it is how it's their storefront that they are approaching to purchase from you. But you also may create your website to have an online ordering platform. This is where if you're selling products and you're largely doing online sales, your website may be your primary sales tool. That may be where your orders are being processed, where your payments are being accepted, and that is where you are selling your products. So websites can be used across the board for different purposes for your business. If you are selling through your website, you're going to want to make sure that your website can integrate with your payment processors. So you are going to integrate with payment processing platforms or integrate with your CRM so that when someone comes to your website and they say they want to purchase, it feeds over to your CRM and then takes them through the sales cycle there. You're going to want to make sure that your website, however you set it up, integrates with the other tools that you're using through your sales process for your business. There's various types of websites that you can set up that are very simple to do. So back when websites and the internet was a new thing, it used to cost hundreds of thousands of dollars to get a good website built, and you had to use a programmer to build it. And now there are tools out there where you can do it yourself and build your own website. Very simple, very easy, and just get started literally within a day. Some of those options are Shopify. Shopify can be used to build a web platform, but also sell your products online. WordPress is one of the most popular website building tools. Very easy to set up a website. Use templates to get you started, and then you can easily manage and update content as you go. Kajabi is one where it can be used to set up your website, but also your sales platform, and allows you to have online platforms for your customers to engage in. Squarespace, Web.com, Wix, GoDaddy, all of these have platforms for you to use to build your website, host your website, and then update your website as you go and add content. It's really important for your website. We're going to get into more of this in the marketing section, but it's really important that your website is easily adaptable and you can change it very easy, because all the algorithms and how SEO works to get you noticed on the web is going to be important. It's going to be important that you're able to update things and you're changing content and adding content on a regular basis. So whatever system you choose to build your website, just make sure that it's easy to update and that you can do it, or you can have someone on your team do it very easily without having to wait for somebody else to help you with that. All right, so the point of sale system, or the POS, is a tool that is used to capture sales data in real time. You're going to see a point of sale system implemented for businesses that are in the retail space, so a retail store, online sales, a restaurant. If you go to a doctor's office, you have to pay your copay. Anywhere where you're collecting payment at the time of service or purchase, you're going to typically have a point of sale system implemented. Typically, a point of sale system isn't going to be capturing as much data as a CRM would, for example. I go to a restaurant, I order my meal, I pay for my meal. You don't know my name, my address, my kids, my pets. You don't know that information because you are just capturing what I got to eat and my payment to pay for my meal, right? It will collect payment. Typically, you want a system that is going to not only process the sale, but also allows you to process the payment for that sale. And you'll want to consider whether or not your POS system will track your inventory. So if you are in an environment, a retail environment, where you have inventory that you need to track, and you want to make sure that if I come in and buy a white t-shirt and you capture that sale through your point of sale system, you want to know that it not only is going to capture that sale and the revenue, but is also going to pull that item out of inventory so that you can track those inventory counts and you know when you need to reorder. So, not all point of sale systems are going to have an inventory tracking feature because not all systems need to, right? If you're going to go to your doctor's office and you are just paying for the service that you are getting at your doctor's office, they're not going to need to track inventory for anything there. So they may not need an inventory tracking piece with their point of sale system. So just make sure that as you're considering if you need a point of sale system for your business, do you need inventory tracking to be included with that? And if so, how does that work and how does that integrate with the point of sale and then with your accounting system as well? Choose a system that integrates well. So you want to make sure that your system integrates with your CRM if you have one. You want to make sure that it integrates very well with your accounting system. So a lot of POS systems that are out there, they do a really good job on the front end of tracking sales, tracking inventory, maybe tracking sales tax. They do a really good job of that, but then when it feeds over into your accounting system, it can kind of be a mess. So you want to make sure that as you're considering the point of sale system that's best for your company, that you also make sure that you see how it integrates with your accounting system and make sure that your accountant agrees that it integrates well and that they're going to get the reporting out of it that they need. All right, the last system that we're going to talk about is project or task management systems. And I'm going to refer to this as a project management system, but most of these systems are going to manage tasks as well. So a project management system is typically going to be used by a company that needs to manage a longer term project, or they need to manage work that's being completed or that needs to be completed for a customer or a client. A project management system will manage the project. So you will set up the project. You can set up the schedules for a project. So how long is the project going to take? What are the different resources that you need for that project? You can set up the specific tasks within that project. So if you've got a project that's going to take 6 months and there are 6 different phases and there are 35 different tasks in each phase, your project management system will allow you to set that all up so that you can mark off tasks as they are complete and as you move through each milestone of the project. It's really important as you're setting up project management systems that you're really cognizant of the types of projects you're going to be doing, and does that system work with the types of projects, the schedules, the tasks that you're going to have. You can use a project management system then to assign work. So if there are 35 different tasks in each milestone or phase, then you can assign each of those tasks to the various team members that are assigned to the project. So it's really important to set up a project management system that works with the type of projects that you perform, as well as is set up with your team in mind and how they're going to best use it. You can also use a project management system for order fulfillment. So if you are going to have orders come into the business and there's certain steps that have to be completed to fulfill that process, your project management system can handle that for you. And then it can also manage recurring tasks. Some project management systems, and this is why I will call it a project management system or a task management system, really some project management systems are set up to manage tasks well, some are not. So you really, if you are looking for more of a task management system versus a project management system, you're really going to want to scrutinize how they do tasks. You'll want to find a system that will do recurring tasks well, which I can tell you from personal experience, not many of them do. So you really want to make sure if you're looking for a task management system that you're really considering how your business works and the type of tasks that get completed, and then you're going to want to look at the systems that are going to fit best for that. So you can set it up to manage your recurring tasks. If you've got a client that every week you perform a certain task, every month you perform a certain tasks, you need to have somewhere that you can track that and you can check that off as it's getting completed. This helps you as at a high level to manage the business and kind of know where everything is at, and make sure everything's on track for each client. Your CRM can sometimes act as your project management system. It can be dual purpose. So some CRMs are really good at handling projects or handling tasks. I would say they're likely better at task management than they might be set up for project management, but there are some systems that are all encompassing CRM, project management, and task management. So as you're considering whether your business needs a project management system, you need to consider why you need it and what you need it to do, and then you consider the various systems and the options that you have for that, and then that'll help you decide what the best solution is for you. All right, now that we've gone over the various systems and tools that you might want to implement for your company, I want to switch over and talk about your IT setup in your organization. With everyone working digitally these days, we want to make sure that we're setting up a good infrastructure, good file structure and organization, and a consistent naming process so that when you are working and sharing and collaborating with multiple team members, you know that you can find things, you can find them easily, and that there's going to be consistency across the board on how everyone is going to be sharing documents and how they're going to be storing those documents. So as we think about setting up our IT infrastructure, we're going to want to align it with our operational infrastructure that we've established. So when we were establishing our functional areas, we came up with sales and marketing, operations, and administration. So we're going to want to design our work environment to align with that. So we're going to set up a workspace for sales and marketing, we're going to set up a workspace for operations, and then we're going to set up a workspace for administration. And then we can further divide that out into however many workspaces, folders, storage areas, however we want based on how the business is run. So we've got one place to go for sales and marketing, but then we can find further breakouts for sales and marketing separate based on what we're going to be dividing out that work. So as you're thinking about how you would structure your workspace, or like your filing, I like to think of this as your filing cabinet. So if we were not working digitally and we had a file cabinet within the office, where would I go to find information about sales and marketing? Where would I go to find information on the operations? So you're going to want to set up your IT infrastructure to kind of divide out the workspaces in the same manner that you've divided out your team or that you've separated out your operations. After you've set up what your IT infrastructure is going to look like and you've had it aligned with your operational infrastructure and your functional areas, then you're going to want to think about the types of folders that you're going to have in each. It's really important to organize documentation and information into different folders and different organizational structure based on what it is, because that's going to make it easier to find. So for example, you will want to have some sort of folder structure for procedures and documentation. So how-to guides, checklists, anything that you're using as templates or somewhere where I would want to go reference how am I supposed to do something, those are going to be folders that are going to be your procedure and documentation folders. You'll want to set up maybe folders for permanent type items. These are going to be items that are, they're your filing cabinet. They're your permanent files that you're going to keep forever. So this might be things like legal documents, your articles of organization, customer files. So when your customers send over, they have credit applications, or you have customer agreements, vendor agreements, things that are not working files. So they are files that once you've completed them, you're not planning to go back and need to reference them or use them on a regular basis. You just need to file them away so that they are there should you ever need them. Then you want to have folders that are like processing folders or in queue folders. These are folders that have working documents in them. So when you receive an invoice that needs to be paid, but it hasn't been paid yet, that should be in queue. When you have a customer address that needs to be updated, but it hasn't been done yet, that should be in queue. So you'll want to have folders that are considered your processing folders or your in queue folders. These are items that are not yet completed, but you need a place for them to be so that you know where to go to find them, and then you know what is open and what is still outstanding to be completed. And then you've got your filing folders. So these are going to be the folders where you put your processed items. So if I think of financial information, for example, a good example of taking something through the full cycle is, I receive a bill in from a vendor. When I receive that bill in, it's going to go into my accounts payable processing folder. I haven't entered it into the accounting system yet. I haven't paid it yet. So it's going to go in the processing folder. Once I have entered it into the accounting system and paid that bill, then I want to keep a copy of that because I know that it's been handled, but it's no longer in process. It's completed. So I am going to move that over to a filing folder. That filing folder might be a folder that's based on the vendor name. It might be a folder that's based on the month that it was paid. It's up to you how you want to file things. You just want to make sure you file them in a way that you can find them again. So, but I'm going to file that into a filing folder so that I know that it's completed and it's done and I don't have anything left to do with that. So you want to make sure you're thinking through what are the different types of files that you're going to have and what are the folders that make the most sense for how you're going to want to store those items, and most importantly, how you're going to find things in those items, in those folders once you've completed them. So as you're thinking about how you're going to find files once you have completed them and filed them away, when you need to go back and find something 2 months later, how are you going to find it? The most important thing you can do is to come up with a standard naming convention. As you are sharing files and you've got teams that are collaborating with files in the same folders, you've got to have standard naming that you are using across the board. Otherwise, there is no way for you to find documentation that you're looking for in any easy form. You are going to spend hours upon hours trying to find historical documentation if you're not naming it consistently. It's really important that you are putting files in the appropriate folders that you have set up, but it's even more important that you are naming things appropriately. With the file storage that you can set up now, again, with SharePoint or Google Drive or even Dropbox, like whatever you are using for your filing system, it is relatively easy to search for documents. However, to search for documents, you have to be able to know what you're searching for. So if you know that every single bill payment that is saved is going to be saved as a PMT file, which is an example that we're using here, then you know that you can search PMT and at least you're going to bring up every single payment that has been made. If you are looking for a deposit and you've decided that deposit is going to be named DEP, which you can see as an example here, then when you are looking for it, you at least know that you can search DEP and you can find all the deposits for a period of time. It's really important that you come up with a standard naming convention, but then it's also important that you come up with standard rules for how you're going to name things. So, an example for that is making sure that you tell everyone that, hey, if you are naming a payment for a vendor, you need to spell out the vendor name for each vendor. You can't shorten it. So for example, Blue Cross Blue Shield is going to, if I was searching for Blue Cross Blue Shield and I thought everybody named everything with the full name, I'm going to type in blue. But if you decide that you're going to shorten it to BCBS, then when I search for blue, I'm not going to be able to find it. So you want to make sure that as you are setting up your naming conventions and you're discussing how you're going to name your files, that you all come up with a standard naming convention and then standard rules so that everyone is following the same process and it's easy to find those documents. I'm going to go over a few examples here that we've got for some standard naming conventions. You can come up with your own. So just come up with what makes the most sense for you and what you think is going to be the easiest for you to go find the documentation when you're looking for it later. We've decided that we have come up with the naming convention of all capital letters at the beginning and all together as one, no spaces, for whatever type of document it is. And so we have decided that, signed agreement and then a space dash space with the date of the signature, space dash space with the customer name. That's the standard naming convention that we are going to use for any sort of signed agreement. So we would use the same for a vendor agreement. It would just have the vendor name at the end. We would use the same for a loan. It would be just the bank name at the end. So we've come up with our standard is all capitals at the beginning and everything together. Our PMT files, we have set our PMT-CC is a PMT credit card. PMT-CK is a payment that's made by check. PMT-ACH is a payment that's made by ACH. So it's, again, consistent. They're all PMT files. There's going to then be a date, and then there's going to be the vendor name that's going to be listed there. So you can come up with whatever makes the most sense. You might want to start with the date in front of yours. You might want to start with the vendor or customer name in front. Whatever makes the most sense for you, you need to come up with something standard that your whole team uses, and then that way you'll be able to find files as you're searching for them down the road. All right, the last thing I'm going to touch on related to IT is security. Security is increasingly important when it comes to your IT environment. It's always been important, but now that everyone is working digitally and everyone is collaborating digitally, it is becoming so much more important that you have a strong focus on security with your IT environment. You want to make sure that you have a proper security and proper policies and procedures in place when it comes to password management. There are lots of password management tools out there that are encrypted, that are very secure, that is a much better option for you to store and maintain your passwords than keeping them written down on pieces of paper or saved in an Excel file. There are tools out there for you that you can use for password management. Some that you might want to look into: 1Password, LastPass. There are multiple password security systems out there that you can use that you may want to consider so that you're securing passwords, especially if you have to share passwords across team members. This becomes really important. Multi-factor authentication, this is becoming almost a requirement for just about any system that you log into now. Multi-factor authentication will essentially require that there's a second form of verification for who you are, aside from just your password. So when you log into a system, you'll put in your password, but then you also might receive a text message that you have to put a code. There might be an authenticator app that you have on your phone or on some other device that you have to put a number in to be able to access. So it's becoming almost a requirement for any system. And if you are set up for your IT systems with your team members and you aren't requiring MFA, you need to go and start requiring MFA. It's very important that you have that set up for extra security and logging in. Device management is along the same lines, is making sure that you've got security on all of your all the devices across the board that are being used by your team, and that you can deploy security information patches. You can manage those devices from one single source so that you're able to lock down a device if needed. You are able to control various devices that your team might be using to access your company information. It's important that you have antivirus software, patch management, making sure that, again, your devices are protected. Also, I want to mention phishing scams. Email phishing is it just about every day you're going to get some sort of email that is a phishing scam. You just need to be aware of those, make sure your team is aware of those, and make sure that you have instructed and educated your team on making sure that they are diligent in any sort of email that they receive, making sure it's legit and valid before they click on anything, open anything, and definitely before they take any sort of action that's being instructed in that email. So you want to make sure that you have educated your team on phishing. There's not really any way to get rid of phishing scams or to protect yourself fully from getting junk emails and scam emails that are going to come through. But the most important thing you can do is to educate your team on those and make sure that they know how to handle them. And then finally, make sure you get cyber insurance put in place. Talk to your insurance broker about what the right cyber coverage is for you, but you want to make sure that you have coverage for any sort of cyber attack or any sort of potential compromise of data that you might be involved with related to your customers or your vendors, that someone might be able to come back at you for their information being compromised. You want to make sure that you're protected. So cyber insurance, 10 years ago even wasn't a very common thing for people to have, and every business needs it now. So make sure that if you do not have a cyber policy, that you discuss with your insurance agent and you get something in place for your company. All right, let's talk about Bootcamp LLC, our example company. We have determined that we are going to use Microsoft 365, Teams, SharePoint, Office, however you want to refer to that. That is going to be our workspace platform that we have chosen to use. We're going to use that for our document storage, our communication, email, and really just our work platform that we're going to use. We are going to implement HubSpot as our CRM, and we will use that for our order processing and delivering our training programs to our customers. WordPress is going to be the platform that we use to build our website. WordPress is a super easy system for building a website, and it also will integrate with HubSpot as well as with Square, which is going to be the payment processing platform we're going to implement. And then we are going to use HubSpot as our task management tool. So we are going to use HubSpot for both task management and for our marketing and our CRM. All right, so your homework for this week is to choose your IT infrastructure. So complete that worksheet. This is going to walk you through the steps for choosing the workspace platform and any other tools that you might need to implement for the business, as well as building out your IT organizational structure. So once you have gone through the worksheet, then go ahead and set up your IT infrastructure. So if you decide you're going to use Microsoft 365, you can set up your workspace and set up your folders and get started with that. If you're going to use Google Drive, if you're planning to use Dropbox, whatever the system is you're going to use, go ahead and work through the setup of that and get those initial file structures and folders in place so that you can start saving things over there. And then create your naming conventions. So get a list together of your basic naming conventions that you think you'll need in the business and put together a list and make sure to share it with your team so that you all are on the same page with that. All right, now that we've gotten through the IT setup and infrastructure, we are going to move on to accounting next week. Accounting is a really big topic, so come prepared for a lot of information, and just know that as we go through the topic that you can come back and revisit it over and over again because there will be a lot of information shared. So I look forward to seeing you next week.